everyone! Welcome back to my channel. I'm Laura, and if you're new here, I talk about productivity, tech, and other career or life advice. Like many of us, I commonly get caught up in thinking that I never have enough time to do the things that I truly enjoy. I'd like to think of myself as an avid reader, and I recently even started a Goodreads account to prove it. I'm well connected, and I'm also an active individual among a host of other things. But these are always activities that were the first to go if I felt like I didn't have enough time on my hands, or there's just a lot of stress around deadlines and a time crunch. But recently though, I found myself with more free time and time to do things that I enjoy and love to do more than ever. And that one simple trick is to drastically limit my screen time. I know that this probably sounds a little bit paradoxical since I work in tech and I have YouTube as my hobby / side project, but putting rules around how I choose to engage with technology and screen time has been probably the best use of my time in the first place and has allowed me to really revitalize myself and find out what I enjoy doing. In the month of June, I started out reading one of the books by Cal Newport called Digital Minimalism. Basically, he describes digital minimalism as just being a way to be conscious of the technology that you're consuming and setting clear rules around how you choose to engage with and consume particular sources of media. In his book, he also recommends that to start the process of digital minimalism, you need to partake in a 30-day cleanse. Now, today is June 29th when I'm filming this video, so I'm on the second to last day. As we come to the end of this detox, so we'll call it, I just find myself being less and less reliant on technology and these digital tools to keep me entertained. Originally, when starting this detox, I really had to force myself to do other things. I had to force myself to start reading, I had to force myself to just consciously stay off of my laptop, and it was pretty hard to find things that were actively as engaging as I would be if I were watching many different YouTube videos. In the month of June alone though, now that we're at the end, I've finished 6 different books and am just starting my 7th now, which is a feat that I probably haven't claimed since elementary school, back when they actually gave you pizza parties for reading and other fun rewards like that. I've also tried to increase my exercise time by about 50% each day, so I aim for 30 to 45 minutes when I can, although this recent heat wave really hasn't helped in encouraging me to get outside. Another good habit that I've gotten used to is waking up early and starting off my day on the right foot. I've always been someone interested in being a morning person and tried many times, but most often it would just end up failing as I fall back into that habit of going to bed at 11 p.m. or midnight. Now though, I've been starting to go to bed at a shockingly early 9 p.m. or 9:30 p.m. and trust me, it is really weird to try to go to bed when the sun is still up. One quick thing that I wanted to add that I don't think I mentioned earlier though is that digital minimalism doesn't mean you have to forego every piece of technology in your life, but rather just evaluate the pros and cons or what that piece of technology or media provides you and see if that's worth spending your time on. I really enjoy watching YouTube, however, I definitely don't need to be spending 2 hours of my day each day doing that. So while I do see the value in watching some YouTube content, there is not as much value in 2 hours of it. So my rule that I've been implementing or trying to recently is that I have a scheduled 20 to 30 minutes each weekday to consume YouTube, and I also have an hour to an hour and a half on the weekends if I so desire. See if you can implement similar rules or guidance on your own usage, and I think you'll be a lot more aware of what you're doing with your time and when. I also finished the book Atomic Habits by James Clear, which is one of the books that I mentioned out of the 6 previously, and in his book, although he talks a lot about how to make good habits, he also spends a decent amount of time talking about how to get rid of your bad habits. Mainly to get rid of your bad habits though, you want to make them unattractive and also make them unsatisfying. There are 2 other rules that he also mentions, but I just don't quite remember them right now. Although I feel like I've been doing a good job pushing up my good habits recently, I definitely was struggling with my bad habits, such as an infinite time suck into watching Twitch streams and YouTube videos near the end of May. Like many other people, I ended up mindlessly browsing or scrolling through social media, even when I got nothing out of it. I did a fresh install on my computer after I finished school, just to get rid of any apps that I didn't need anymore, and also just to eliminate any unnecessary distractions or apps that I didn't really find myself reaching for. It also logged me out of all my social media accounts and various accounts for all the websites that I used to browse, which really was just a blessing. This actually added a layer of unattractiveness to my different media platforms that I enjoyed browsing. Instead of automatically being logged in, I have to be redirected to the homepage and then log in manually myself. And it just takes that little extra bit of effort to get to any site that I want to right now. Recently, I also never really kept social media applications on my phone itself. I always just force myself to log in to the web version on my phone or the web version on my computer if I ever needed to access anything. The one app that did stay consistent reinstall and uninstall on my phone though was the Apollo Reddit app. And I can safely say that when I did have the Apollo app installed on my phone, my screen time increased by maybe 30 minutes to an hour on average each day that I was just spending browsing through Reddit. Now, I definitely don't get the same source of news information and understanding of current events, which I think may just be a result of lack of motivation to actually peruse through different news sites, but that is on my to-do radar. In general though, if anything is important enough, I will hear about it and learn about it either from some third party or just another friend or something. And lastly, my biggest nemesis to my productivity is the app Discord. I chose to not reinstall the Discord application onto my computer because I just would always mindlessly flick through Discord even though there was nothing to actually look at or reply to. I also added a rule that I would have to log myself out every time I left the page, which admittedly I haven't been following recently, but in general I haven't been spending too much time on Discord, so I don't think it's too much of a problem right now. I also realized that during my 2-week break from school recently, I just found myself spending a lot of time doing things that didn't satisfy me or were just generally things that I didn't enjoy. During my 2-week break from school, I let myself watch as much YouTube as I wanted, although I tried to cap it at an upwards limit of 2 hours, which sounds absurdly high now that I look back at it. At the end of each day though, there was another thing that I accomplished that I could be proud of or continue the next day. It was just more mindless YouTube binging and I guess some information learned, but not really applicable information. Through the collective knowledge though of Cal Newport and James Clear, I finally understand why I was so reluctant to get off of YouTube and Twitch and other media sites like that. I learned that boredom is really the main thing that stops me from being productive or getting into a workflow. Basically, your brain just wants to really avoid boredom. And with all the different devices that we've been connected to and the constant stream of information, it's really hard to just focus on a task because there's not constant stimulation, reward, or engagement happening just from engaging in your work. For example, why would I want to do work which is writing a report when I can instead just watch YouTube videos at 2 times speed, which gives me constant stimulation and visuals and audio to look at. The bottom line is we have to face our boredom, and this is something that I'm still working on, and it's definitely a skill that you have to train. In one of Cal Newport's other books called Deep Work, he explains how we actually have to build up this capability to focus in and zone in on our work. What he says is that it's very taxing on our brains to be engaged and focused on an activity for a long period of time, and especially with the stream of media that I mentioned earlier, our brains are just more and more used to having these constant distractions around. In these deep work sessions though, Newport recommends that you set up strict rules for how long you have to focus for and when you can actually access these different distracting activities. For example, it would be worth it to start working in 30-minute increments, so setting a timer for 30 minutes, engaging in whatever work you have to do, and then giving yourself a break. So instead of directly scheduling deep work time, he also recommends scheduling in leisure time. So even though you have a period of deep work, it's more beneficial to you if you actually schedule in a time in which you have a break from your deep work. This actually gives your brain something to look forward to and can help drive you forward in finishing your deep work session. But getting used to boredom is again an incredibly difficult task and something that I still have a lot of work left to do. I also certainly struggled with my digital minimalism detox, like I mentioned earlier. There are some days in which I would spend way more time than expected, and other days in which I spend way less time than expected. There's a little bit of give and take in the whole process, and even though we're not really aware of our habits now, I promise you that if you just start to set some rules and become more aware of what you're doing and when, the more that you set rules and clear expectations around your media use, for example, the more clear the cues for your bad habits will be. Something that did help for me though was just direct habit substitution. So whenever I had a craving for a bad habit, I'd immediately replace it with the good habit that I was trying to implement in its place. So for me, one of my bad habits was scrolling through my phone, and the good habit that I wanted to introduce was a habit of reading. So every time that I had a craving to scroll through my phone, instead I'd pick up the book that I was in the process of reading and just start reading. There was a lot of resistance initially, and I did get really bored reading the book at times, but over time I find myself just wanting to scroll through my phone less and less, and there's just not really anything much left for me on my phone to engage with anyways, aside from the occasional text or call. Now I'm just genuinely interested in reading as much as I can, and I've really enjoyed some of the books that I've been reading recently. I'm curious though, so leave in the comments down below one of your bad habits that you're trying to break, and also what a good habit that you're trying to integrate into your life is. That's all I have for this week, and I'll see you again next week for a brand new video. Bye.